Welcome to Donington Park for the final rounds in the Toyo Tires Porsche Championship. Last time out at Brands Hatch, Adam Southgate sealed the Boxer Championship, and he starts once again on pole position here for the first of this weekend's races. But it's back at the grid in the 924 Championship, where all the action's going to take place this weekend. Gavin Johnson, you could wrap up the title this weekend. It's going to be between you and Hugh. Hugh starting at the back of the grid gives you a little bit of breathing space.
It does, yeah. I'm quite happy. Good lap time in qualifying, put me on pole. Hugh had a misfire, so yeah, it's a good start to the day, yeah.
And looking forward to the racing, is it just a case of keeping yourself clean and scoring the points, or are you going out there for the victory?
I think I'm going for the victory. Victory and fastest lap makes the gap bigger, and that's what we're here for, isn't it? I think we get into too much of a dice. I'll have to use my brain, and I'm here for the championship, not one race. But equally, I'll be giving it a good go, certainly the first half of the race.
Well, look forward to seeing you out there. We wish you all the best. Thank you, Gavin.
So it's make or break time in the 924 category. Here's the grid in full. Adam Southgate alongside Richard Avery, Ed Hayes and James Coleman. Rick Styron is back in 5th position. He's alongside Andrew Porter from Kevin Molyneux and Toby Smales. Gary Goodwin is alongside Lee Bowden from Gary Lawrence and Matthew Harris. Kevin Ludford brings up 13th. In the 924s, it's Gavin Johnson and David Jones on the front row from Chris Valentine and John Jeffrey, Gary Campbell and Peter Osgerby, and Hugh Pert, who starts from the back of the grid. And he's going to be charging his way through to try and steal the title away from Gavin Johnson. So the drivers making their way to the starting grid. There are onboard cameras aplenty this weekend. We'll have several drivers to catch a bird's eye view of the race action. Gary Lawrence will have an onboard camera with him. Richard Avery from the front of the grid, good to see him back again. And also Gavin Johnson, of course, title contender at the front end of the field. Ed Hayes, the 2017 champion. That man in front of him to the right is the 2018 champion. Adam Southgate with a mission to do to finish up the title. Johnson wants to win the title in the 924s. Away we go. And it's a good start from the front of the field from Richard Avery. He's going to draw level with Adam Southgate. James Coleman trying to get a good start. Ed Hayes likewise as they jostle in for position down at the braking zone. Hayes is cut across and chopped in on James Coleman. So they come off the turn, and it looks like Avery has got into the lead off the start. We're on board with Gary Lawrence as flashing through. Gary Goodwin gets the move on us. We drop down through the crane of curves, and Richard Avery takes an early lead in front of Adam Southgate, the new champion. Then it is Coleman. Kevin Molyneux's made a terrific start. Ed Hayes is down to 5th position in front of Rick Styron. And now that's a move on one of the boxers for the 18 of David Jones, who has charged his way forward past the 99 of Matthew Harris. Gavin Johnson trying to come around the outside as well. Really exciting battle. So they come up the straight once again and into McLean's. That is Molyneux dicing away with Gary Lawrence at the moment as they continue to battle their way through. Gary Lawrence charging his way through from 11th on the starting grid. They come through the right-hander at Coppice and on to Starkey's straight once again. So, it's been a while since we've had great race action at Donington Park in the Toyo Tires Porsche Championship, but as a season finale, you can't find a much better location as Ed Hayes gets himself into the chicane in front of the returning Rick Styron. It's been a while since he's been in the boxes, but he just can't help coming back. Good to see him in the race action again. Now Gavin Johnson has got a run on David Jones out of the final chicane. This could be his moment where he gets a victory if he gets past him. He's going to try and make the lunge down the Wheatcroft straight into Redgate. Jones is going to leave him a little bit of space, but not a lot. Gavin Johnson's going for broke, though. He wants to go for the lead, but he knows that being in front of Hugh Pert will be enough to win the title, so he's just hanging on to it for the moment. Second place will do as they drop through Hollywood. Down through the crane of curves. And that's up in front. Whoa, that's Gary Lawrence passing the spinning car out in front. Oh, and they're all having an issue. Matthew Harris has gone off onto the grass there as well. Now, who was that went? I think it was Gary Goodwin who had the spin and has ended up stopping out on the circuit. I'll double check, but I think that might be game over for Gary Goodwin, who's a long way down. Oh, that's Kevin Molyneux off. Goodness me, they're all falling off the circuit here at Donington. So David Jones has gone through with Gavin Johnson on his heels, but Kevin Molyneux is off in the distance behind them, and I think Gary Goodwin went off as well. So a couple of issues there for a few of the drivers further down the order. Not the greatest of indications of what's to come. Gavin Johnson swarming around all over the back of David Jones, trying to win the 924 Championship battle. You'll probably see more of the 924s this weekend than we've seen all season, because this championship is still to be decided. The Porsche Boxsters still having a great end-of-term season finale as Rick Styron darts from one side of the circuit to the other on Gary Lawrence, and it's welcome back to the championship, Rick Styron. It's like you've never been away, mate. Whoa, a little bit of a slide, but Gary Lawrence is going to have to try and hold him off. And now straight up the inside of Avery. Brilliant run there from Rick Styron, just continues it on the charge. And now he's chasing after Ed Hayes. Next up on the inside of Richard Avery, that is going to be a run from Andrew Porter. Hasn't quite been able to get the move done. We're on board with Avery. That's Gary Lawrence in front of us now. So Richard Avery, who initially took the lead early doors, has now dropped back. So it's up to Adam Southgate in the lead of the race to deal with the pressure cooker from the drivers behind. But Adam Southgate has done what he does best in 2018. Get into a lead and keep it. Toby Smales in the 8 car, just running up towards Coppis out of McLean's, in through the right-hander. And he's got company as well from the 46 of Gary Goodwin. So it wasn't him who spun off. I think it might have been Lee Bowden then who had a little bit of a turnaround. Unfortunate there, and apologies to Gary Goodwin. There was definitely a spin from one of the Porsche Boxsters trying to figure out and decipher who it is. I think it might have been Kevin Ludford or Lee Bowden. We'll have to double check on that one. Richard Avery on board with him now as they head down towards the braking zone. Lee Bowden is in the mix there somewhere, I think. And there is Richard Avery in the 3, just in behind Gary Lawrence as they go through turn 1. Still chasing after the race leader, Adam Southgate, who's having a really good run in the lead and just continuing on his way. So Southgate leads. Second position is Ed Hayes at the moment in front of Rick Styron. Then it is Lawrence in front of Avery. A really strange race this one so far, because it's been a little topsy-turvy to say the least in the first couple of laps. And I think we may have another one of those fantastic races that we tend to see in the Toyo Tires Porsche Championship. It's already been thrills and spills a lot of the way round. Now there is the 93 of Gary Lawrence, who's got a bit of a black eye by the look of it. Certainly the car has. The right front headlight seems to be missing and has been taped over. You don't need them in these conditions. There's no dark racing from Donington today. Richard Avery charging after him, but here comes Rick Styron trying to get a lunge around the outside of Ed Hayes into Goddard's. Into the right, Hayes protects. Into the left, Hayes protects again. This is a 2016 champion, Rick Styron, with Ed Hayes, the 2017 champion. And of course, the 2018 champion is up the road, Adam Southgate. So the 3 top champions from the last 3 seasons are battling away for the top 3. And Styron now swarming all over the back of Ed Hayes. A really exciting run this, to see the 3 previous champions of the Porsche Boxsters in the top 3 positions here at Donington. Southgate leads, Hayes in second, Styron in third. They drop through the Craner curves once again. And Ed Hayes still running well in P2 in front of Rick Styron, who slides a little bit out of the old hairpin. And that's enough to take him off the back of Ed Hayes for the moment. Gavin Johnson still right in behind David Jones. Jones can win the race. He's not got a problem with that. As long as Gavin just sits in behind, he's got plenty of points made up on Hugh Pert in the championship fight. So all looks good from his point of view. They continue to run on the far side of the circuit. Up through the right-hander. Ed Hayes continues on his way. Richard Avery hustling behind Gary Lawrence. And they continue to tussle on the far side of the circuit, down the back straight. Ed Hayes running with Rick Styron at the moment as they drop down to the braking zone for Goddard's again. Into the chicane. Ed Hayes runs through. Rick Styron in third position. Back up the straight once again. Ed Hayes trying to fend off Rick Styron, but Styron's got a good run out of the chicane. They're going to go side by side, and Rick Styron's got a problem! Rick Styron's got a problem! The car's going to pull off. What a shame! It looked to me as though he was going to make a push for victory, but unfortunately something has gone wrong on the car, and Rick Styron is out on his comeback drive. Absolutely incredible. Rick Styron out of the race, unfortunately. So that's third place now for Gary Lawrence in front of the 3 of Richard Avery. So Avery running well, And a really exciting battle to come then for third position. We're on board with Gavin Johnson. Has he got the run this time on David Jones? He's going to try and make his move. It's a much stronger position he's in, but again, he's not going to do anything silly, so he just bails out of it for the moment. Nothing too pressurising at the moment as Kevin Molyneux fights his way back. He should be able to take those two quite easily as Richard Avery dives for third position up the inside of Gary Lawrence. Drifts out wide through Coppice, but he's got the run. Gary Lawrence lets him go and tries to get the undercut, but he's not going to be fast enough as Molyneux takes on the two 924 leaders. He's got past Gavin Johnson, no problem. Now, if Kevin Molyneux gets David Jones in the right place, that could actually help Johnson, but he hasn't. So Jones is passed by Kevin Molyneux. Gavin Johnson is still a few car lengths back. So Dolly Molly just getting himself back into contention. But from his point of view, it's still quite a long way to go. 20-minute race, of course, and an awful lot still to come in this first encounter of 3 this weekend. But Rick Styron, sadly, is out of the race. And it's going to be Southgate who leads then from Ed Hayes in second, and now Richard Avery up into third position in front of Gary Lawrence. So a really exciting battle here as Gavin Johnson still chases after David Jones as he runs in the lead of the 924 battle. Gavin Johnson in second, but leading the championship in the 924s, hoping to emulate his stablemate and good buddy Pip Hammond, who won the 924 title last year for the PDC racing team. Now they are looking to do it in 2018 with Gavin Johnson. I wonder if they'll do it again in 2019. I wonder what Mr. Wood is doing these days. He might be in the grid for a third different champion in the 924s in 3 different years. And of course they're emulating Linda Warren, who did the title in 2016 in the same year that Rick Styron won the Boxster Championship. There goes Adam Southgate lapping the 88 of Chris Valentine. Good to see the photographer of the championship back in action once again. Richard Avery diving up the inside. Whoa, Richard! Easy there, boy. Easy to lose tack as Gary Lawrence goes around the outside of both David Jones and Richard Avery. So Gary Lawrence has taken third place back thanks to that mistake from Avery. So David Jones is now in the lead of the 924 battle with Gavin Johnson right in there as well. Oh, and that's Adam Southgate pulling off. That's the race leader. Adam Southgate is out of the race. He's got a mechanical problem. So Adam Southgate retires from the race. That is a big drama. Wow. That is now Styron out, 2016 champion, and Adam Southgate, 2018 champion out. So that means that Ed Hayes leads the race. Wow, big drama then at the front end in the 924s. Oh, mistake from David Jones. If Gavin Johnson times this right, he could sweep by and take the lead. But David Jones is going to give him enough room. I think he realises, well, I might get a penalty for that if I don't let him go. But Gavin Johnson is going to have plenty of space, plenty of discipline. He just checks to make sure David Jones isn't going to chop him across, which he doesn't, and Gavin Johnson takes the lead. That's crucial at this stage of the championship. He really wanted to get himself up the sharp end. So now, after all of that, Ed Hayes leads the race, and this is the battle for second place between Gary Lawrence and Richard Avery. And Avery's going to get boxed in here, rather unfortunately, behind Gary Campbell. Not a lot he can do about it. Now Avery gets the switchback. Well, unfortunately, there was nothing really that Richard Avery could do to avoid that one. He's just doing his best to keep going. As in second position is Gary Lawrence. Third is the 3 of Richard Avery. Fourth place now, that is Andrew Porter. What a strange race this is. A lot of the big names have ended up falling out or falling off. So we've had a lot of drivers dropping back. What's happened to James Coleman, actually? He seems to have disappeared from the fray. I think he's got some kind of mechanical problems as we ride on board with Gavin Johnson. Coleman is a long way back. He's still motoring, but rather sluggishly by his standards. Definitely some kind of technical problem for Coleman. Styron out. Adam Southgate out. Who else has had problems? Molyneux's obviously slipped back a long way. So all sorts of difficulties for the main protagonists. And we've just heard that Gary Goodwin is out of the race now as well. So Gary Goodwin out of the race. So they're dropping like flies here at Donington Park. I'm not sure what the catalyst is, but definitely a lot of difficulties in this race. A higher attrition rate than we're used to, as Gavin Johnson leads the way in the 924s. And this is perfect as far as his championship attack is concerned. He wants to beat Hugh Pert, and he's definitely going about that at the moment. Second place behind Gavin Johnson is David Jones, and Hugh Pert is there in third position at the moment. So he's fought his way back to P3. We haven't seen much of him, but he's doing a fine job. And then you've got the likes of Valentine and Campbell behind, battling away over 4th position. On board with Gavin Johnson as he goes up towards Schwantz Curve through the left flick. No problems at all for Gavin Johnson, unlike some of the other champions in the mix. Styron out, Southgate out in the Boxster Brigade. And in the 924s, Gavin Johnson just jogging away nicely, the car doing everything he needs it to. So some big problems for other drivers, but Gavin Johnson finally is having things go his way as he comes down the straight. Now that is the sister car for the PDC racing team, I believe. That's the 21 of Peter Osgerby. Good to see him out in the car this weekend. Obviously, there's plenty of opportunities for drivers to have a go in the Toyo Tires Porsche Championship. If I wasn't commentating on this, I'd be doing it myself. They tried to get me in the 924 25th anniversary race last year, and I couldn't quite get the wherewithal to get it done. But I do urge anybody who wants to have a play in a proper racing car, you can't go much further wrong than this. As Ed Hayes, this is the speed difference between the Porsche Boxster and the 924 as he closes up on Hugh Pert to lap him. He's obviously had some difficulties getting through the traffic because that windscreen needs a proper wash, mate. But Ed Hayes leads the way as he comes over the start-finish line. And that is usually, of course, the car that belongs to Alex Stocker by the look of it. He's borrowed Alex's car for the last round of the championship. Richard Avery still running well in 3rd position. I was going to say 2nd, but that's Gary Lawrence up the road. Now we've got these two, Valentine and Campbell, having a great scrap over 4th position in the 924 Brigade. So Gary Campbell still pushing Chris Valentine, and then behind them is Peter Osgerby and John Jeffrey, I believe, although Jeffrey looks as though he's in some difficulty. Jeffrey has been dropping down off the pace of late. His best is actually a 1:32.7, so that's not great in terms of pace compared to even the other production 924s, I should say, sorry. Round the outside, that is a good charge forward from Coleman, so the car is firing on all cylinders again. But the difficulty is he's got a lot of ground to make up and he's trying to charge his way through. And who's that that's with him? I think that's Lee Bowden. So Bowden trying to chop his way through the field as well. Yes, indeed. The 14 still in there. And into the pits comes... that's Porter. Porter's in the pits, and so is John Jeffrey. So Jeffrey comes into the pits. Andrew Porter is in the pits as well from 4th position. They are dropping like flies at the moment. There is a real problem. All sorts of mechanical maladies for the cars. So there is Valentine still battling away with Gary Campbell. Big tank slapper from Gary Campbell, but he manages to catch it on the exit. We're just watching James Coleman and Lee Bowden going through. Now, James Coleman, I think, is up into 5th position as a result of all this, in front of Lee Bowden and Kevin Molyneux. But this is not the sort of pace we expect from James Coleman. He's definitely had some difficulties. So I would suspect that he's got a very long race ahead of him in race 2, because there's all sorts of problems for that car by the look of it. Certainly not up to the same sort of race pace that we expect to see from James Coleman. His best is a 1:19.4 compared to Ed Hayes, the race leader, on a 1:19.1. So in terms of fastest laps, he's not far away, but he's definitely had some kind of teething trouble. Richard Avery closing right up now on Gary Lawrence as he battles for a way to come through in a 2nd position. That is a slowing Boxster in front of us. I think that's Matthew Harris as up the inside. Wait a minute. Is that Matthew Harris or is that Ed Hayes? I'm trying to see. Gary Lawrence is there in 2nd position. He's been passed by Richard Avery. That was a flash of red. I wonder if that was Ed Hayes, because all of a sudden these two have swapped position. It's for 2nd position, I think. Fairly sure Ed Hayes has continued on through. Or is that Matthew Harris that was getting out of the way of them? Not entirely sure. But they've got past a Boxster very quickly. Don't tell me that was Ed Hayes, otherwise all 3 of the last champions from the last 3 years would be out of the race. It was Ed Hayes! Another race leader out of the race. What is going on at Donington? Unbelievable! Now Ed Hayes is in trouble. So that's Southgate out, that is Styron out, that is Goodwin out, Porter out, and now Ed Hayes. What a race this is. All sorts of big names dropping out of the race left, right and centre. Wow, so it's going to be a non-champion who finishes in the top 3. They were in 1, 2 and 3 at one point. And now all 3 of the last champions from 2016 in Rick Styron, 2017 in Ed Hayes and 2018 in Adam Southgate will fail to finish this race. That is drama. But this man, Gavin Johnson, is on the road to becoming 2018 924 champion, and he leads the way. So he is running in front of David Jones and Hugh Pert. Still Gary Campbell versus Chris Valentine for 4th place in the class. What a dramatic race. Well, that means that Richard Avery is now leading this race in front of Gary Lawrence and Toby Smales. What a top 3 this is going to be, and very richly deserved by them all. But what a finish to what has definitely been the most dramatic race of the 2018 season. Gavin Johnson is just driving on. No problem at all for him. For once, it's not been a particularly dramatic afternoon for him so far. So he's just getting on with it and leading the race in perfect style. And this is exactly what he needs to go on to become the 924 champion. I have a feeling he's not really going to wrap it up, and he's certainly not going to celebrate it until the end of the 3rd race, depending on what happens in races 2 and 3, of course. But this is definitely starting the right way for the Power Distribution Control race team. There's David Jones, still pushing hard in 2nd, and well he might. Working very hard, but, well, 6 retirements from this race now, and James Coleman's hit trouble, so he is slowing again. He had difficulties originally, but he is now going very slowly as well. So that's Styron out, Southgate out, Hayes out, Porter out, Goodwin out, and Coleman now in trouble. What a dramatic race here at Donington Park. Richard Avery leading the race by just a couple of seconds now to Gary Lawrence, as Gavin Johnson continues on his way. And this is a perfect demonstration of how to go about winning a championship for Gavin Johnson. He just needs to keep going. No problem at all for him at the moment, as he just continues to lord it out in front of the rest of the field. Now that in front of him is Chris Valentine, who appears to have had an issue somewhere, as Richard Avery continues on his way, about to lap Gavin Johnson. And I have a feeling that is going to pretty much be his last act in this race. As we run down the time, Richard Avery is on his last lap, and he's going to have a fantastic run to the victory. Gary Lawrence will be very delighted with 2nd place, I'm sure, and Toby Smales will be practically elated with 3rd place. So a really good effort from the drivers at the front of the Porsche Boxster Brigade. But what a dramatic race. And Richard Avery bounces back this weekend, returns to the championship, and I don't even think he thought he would win the first race of the weekend, but that is exactly what's going to happen. Out of the final couple of corners, and he will charge down Starkey Straight for the last time, up towards the Goddard S's. It's going to be a really exciting run to the flag as he laps Gavin Johnson, and it is indeed his final act of the race as he comes into the final chicane. It is a brilliant run for Richard Avery. What a comeback to the championship. He crosses the line and takes the race 1 victory. Absolutely sensational in the craziest race I have seen all season in the Toyo Tires Porsche Championship. Lawrence is 2nd to Smales in 3rd. Bowden comes home 4th in front of Dolly Molly in 5th from Ludford and Harris. James Coleman is 8th in the end. Hayes out, Porter out, Southgate out, Goodwin out, and Rick Styron out. What drama from the Porsche Boxsters. More importantly, though, in the 924s, the championship battle looks very good indeed for Gavin Johnson. He beats David Jones to the flag in front of Hugh Pert and Gary Campbell, with Chris Valentine in P5, Peter Osgerby in 6th, and John Jeffrey, sadly, out of the race.
Richard, congratulations on your victory there in race 1. Lots going on out on track. How was it inside the car, keeping abreast of what was happening? Was the victory a surprise to you?
I had a guy on the wall, to be fair, telling me what position I was in, and then I see Adam off on the side. Ed had a fault, Rick had a fault. I had a good start. I got in front of Adam, then about halfway through the first lap, I started losing gears. Couldn't get me gears, and it was struggling then for probably 4 or 5 laps. Eventually they came back again, what it was, a linkage must be loose, and then I was battling with Gary. And then took the victory, and that was it.
Well, it was certainly well deserved. We look forward to seeing you out there in race 2, but congratulations and enjoy your victory tonight.
Yeah, thanks a lot. I'd also thank Gary Lawrence for the loan of the car this weekend, and let him know it's an awesome car.
Gavin, congratulations on your victory in the 924 race. That sets you up quite nicely for tomorrow and the possibility of taking the championship.
Yeah, absolutely. Did everything we needed to do. Won the race. Dave kept us honest. Fastest lap point, new lap record, all helps towards it. If Hugh could do me a favour and not do so well in race 2, then it's done, yeah.
Anything you're going to change in terms of preparation for tomorrow's race? Is the car okay? Is there anything you need to adapt, or are you in a good place now?
I think we're in a good place. Car feels great. You never know with these older cars, but no, I feel really good. We were fast. Car felt good coming off the track. Yeah, no concerns.
Well, we'll let you get a good night's sleep tonight, and we look forward to seeing you out there tomorrow.
Thanks very much. See you tomorrow. Cheers.